I mean, he's worse than any human being that's ever run for office, probably. He's a cheap, no good person, because he's just an outright pig.
Congressman Max Miller is refusing to exit his re-election race after horrific allegations from his ex-wife. Miller has a history of investigations and allegations involving women.
I'm not going to get involved in that. It's a very sad situation, and I know Max very well.
Which is precisely what we've seen here. Is there a double standard? No. There is a conventional, hypocritical standard.
The allegations are serious. I think Max is taking them seriously. I think our colleagues are. But again, we have to allow this process to play out. It's just begun.
A third of the Senate conference right now is calling for him to get out, at least, maybe more, and including at least 9 Republican senators.
Donald Trump said that he should get out. He would get out.
Yeah. This guy is unqualified to lead. And when he is questioned about this,
that's a very good point.
His responses are wholly insufficient.
If they had the real power, he would have been gone, and he wasn't, because they were waiting and playing footsie and saying maybe it's not really a Nazi tattoo, maybe it's not really that he was beating all these girlfriends.
Guys, recently on Abby Phillip's show, MAGA pundits were completely dismantled when they tried to defend Republican Congressman Max Miller, who's facing serious allegations of physical abuse from his ex-wife. Abby and progressive panelists fact-checked these MAGA defenders so hard that they surrendered immediately. Let's see what happened on the show, and I'll share my thoughts as we go.
Is there a double standard when it comes to domestic scandals in politics? For weeks, Republicans made the accusation against Democrat Graham Plattner, one of their most popular talking points.
I watched that thug that's up in Maine. He's a thug. And they're trying to make excuses for him. I mean, he's worse than any human being that's ever run for office, probably. He's a cheap, no good person, because he's just an outright pig. He's like a pig. I watched him. I come up with good names for people. I don't want to stick him with that one, although I think pigs would be very upset about it.
Plattner, of course, would eventually leave his race after pressure finally mounted from Democrats. But now the shoe is decidedly on the other foot. Congressman Max Miller is refusing to exit his re-election race after horrific allegations from his ex-wife. Miller has a history of investigations and allegations involving women. And his former father-in-law, Senator Bernie Moreno, says that he doesn't belong in the halls of Congress.
This is truly the 7th level of hell. This has been a horrific experience for my entire family.
But as for Republican leadership, they are not calling on Miller to exit the race like they did Graham Plattner.
I'm not going to get involved in that. It's a very sad situation, and I know Max very well.
Will you tell him to drop out?
No, I will tell Max what I tell everyone. These are serious allegations. I'm the father of 2 daughters who work on Capitol Hill. I mean, the allegations are serious. I think Max is taking them seriously. I think our colleagues are. But again, we have to allow this process to play out. It's just begun.
It's a very sad and unfortunate case. It is a family matter, and I don't have any observations beyond
that. Camille, you're a father as well. Are they just hiding behind process here to not deal with an issue that actually involves not just the mom, but the child? I mean, there are allegations that were investigated that he denies, and where, they didn't substantiate them, but there were allegations that had to be investigated that the child had been injured in some kind of confrontation.
I mean, I think in this context, hiding behind process, it might be a fair assessment, especially given that there aren't only these allegations. There are other allegations involving other women and other allegations, again, of domestic violence. This is very serious stuff, and real questions about his conduct in general. And I certainly believe in due process. I want these things to be adjudicated so that we're not allowing rumor and innuendo to dictate what happens in the course of our politics. But these particular offices demand a very high standard. We've had all of these instances very recently of people who are having various medical issues and they don't talk about it. We don't know exactly what's going on, just a mysterious absence. In these contexts, we ought to be demanding a higher level of accountability. And I think it's fair to expect the parties to not simply behave in this duplicitous, obviously partisan manner, which is precisely what we've seen here. Is there a double standard? No. There is a conventional, hypocritical standard employed by both parties anytime someone in their own ranks is in trouble.
But it is true that Democrats kicked Graham Plattner out.
Eventually.
It took too long, and Republicans should learn the lesson. They watched that.
But not to interrupt you, but
Yes.
just to be clear, like, I would say most Democrats at the beginning were ready for Graham Plattner to go.
No.
But he stayed because his campaigin and a lot of online voices were backing him.
He was defended by lots of Democrats.
But the establishment didn't back him to begin with. So the people who have the power in the party were largely saying, time to go. Because he wasn't their candidate to begin with. That's not what we're seeing here.
If they had the real power, he would have been gone, and he wasn't. Because they were waiting and playing footsie and saying maybe it's not really a Nazi tattoo, maybe it's not really that he was beating all these girlfriends, maybe it's really not true.
Guys, let's talk about Max Miller, because this is where things became really ugly for Trump and his party. Miller, who is a Republican congressman from Ohio, is in serious trouble. His ex-wife, Emily Moreno, has accused him of child endangerment and physical abuse. Her allegations are extremely serious. She's claimed that Miller threw boiling water on her, physically abused her, and threatened her with a firearm. She's also alleged that her daughter was terrified of what happened. However, Miller has strongly denied the accusations. And let's be crystal clear. Allegations are not convictions. Miller has the right to defend himself, and these claims deserve a thorough investigation. Honestly, nobody should be declared guilty just because some other person made an accusation. But here's the problem. Where was that same attitude and ethical standard when Democrat Graham Plattner was in trouble during his campaign for Senate? When serious allegations against Plattner surfaced, Trump and MAGA goons immediately went after him. His former girlfriends accused him of abusive behavior. One woman alleged that he grabbed her by the wrist and pulled her from a taxi. Another accused him of confining her in a room and twisting her arm. A former girlfriend also accused him of sexual assault. Plattner strongly denied all these allegations, but the pressure became overwhelming, and Plattner eventually dropped his Senate campaign. Republicans were more than happy to point at that scandal and say, see, this is what Democrats are supporting. And things became quite interesting when Donald Trump joined in, personally attacking Plattner and calling him a thug and a pig. The message was loud and simple. Someone facing such serious accusations should not be running for office. Fine, I agree with that principle, but now let's turn the camera around, guys, because now the allegations are hitting a Republican congressman. And surprisingly, the message has changed completely. Miller isn't dropping out of the race. His party and Trump are not publicly demanding that he leave. And the same so-called political moralists who demanded consequences for Plattner are now advising everyone to slow down and respect due process. Wait a second, are you serious? Did you demand the same due process for Plattner as well? These Republicans and their MAGA pundits always do the same. They always try to roast Democrats whenever there's something shady about them, but all of a sudden they become completely indifferent when Trump or any Republican does something wrong. These shameless idiots forget that they behave differently about the same situation when a Democrat was involved.
And yes, these people do deserve their day in court, of course, like Camille says, but learn the lesson. You can at least condemn it. Trump could at least say, if this is true, it's horrific, and he has no place in Congress, and we want nothing to do with you.
Trump's not going to do that. Trump has a double standard.
Trump should do a lot of things
that
he doesn't do, but the party leadership should be much clearer.
But that whole thing could have made you think that the Republican Party is foursquare behind this guy. A third of the Senate conference right now is calling for him to get out, at least, maybe more, and including at least 9 Republican senators. Yeah, it's all on record. And top of that, the process, because the parties are so weak, the process is really how you make this work. It worked for Van Taylor. It worked for Tony Gonzalez after a lot of pressure. Even this week, a guy facing Edwards, Representative Edwards, who was facing an ethics investigation, said, I'm not going to run it again because of the ethics investigation. There's no mechanism for the parties to kick people out anymore. The Supreme Court decision in NRSC might change that.
If Donald Trump said that he should get out, he would get out.
Yeah, sure. And he should. And the president
should have much better than it's a family matter.
The ethics process is not the only mechanism. There is a public pressure mechanism. It does exist, and his name is Donald Trump.
Yeah, and he should act. Yeah. He will not. Because he would be indicting himself.
Yeah, just doesn't have the moral courage to do so. Look, the Plattner thing was a disaster. And it was a disaster roundly. My flank, the left flank of the party, failed people on Graham Plattner. They weren't as invested into Graham Plattner and who he was. I'm a black guy. You got to do better than I didn't know I had a Nazi tattoo. I was saying it on the podcast the entire time. Nobody was listening. We ended up where we are. I hope that the American people are paying attention, that there's no moral standard, there's no moral courage, there's nothing but team sports in your politics right now. That's what it is. And the people that are going to rise to lead this country in the near and not so near future are going to be the ones that have an eye on their moral center and who they are. The reality is, I've watched this, there's too much there. This guy is unqualified to lead. And when he is questioned about this,
that's a very good point.
His responses are wholly insufficient.
Yeah.
That he looks insincere. He looks worse. That Jake Tapper interview was a disaster.
So guys, here is where the MAGA boss and his defenders got exposed. Nobody is saying Miller should be declared guilty without an investigation. And you know what? That's a fair point. But it's also about the hypocrisy and double standards that Trump and his allies are showing here. If serious allegations were enough for him to demand a Democrat quit the campaign, why aren't you applying the same standard to Miller? Ironically, MAGA pundits are suddenly very interested in due process. Great, everybody should be. But you shameless idiots, you don't get to discover due process only when the scandal is about a Republican. And then there's this MAGA leader, Donald Trump. This part is especially interesting, guys. Trump personally attacked Plattner. He mocked him. He called him a thug and a pig. But when the controversy involved Miller, Trump didn't publicly demand that Miller withdraw from the race. Instead, he called the situation a very sad thing. That's it. So naturally, people are asking, what changed? Why was Trump so quick to condemn a Democrat, but so cautious when a Republican is facing serious allegations? Again, let me make this clear. This isn't about declaring Miller guilty. It's about the standard being applied here. If the rule is that allegations must be investigated before political punishment, then apply that rule to everyone, including Democratic politicians. If the rule is that serious allegations make someone unfit to run for office, then apply that rule to everyone too. You can't have one standard when the other party is in trouble and completely different standards when your own party is under pressure. And you know what? Here's the harsh reality these MAGA goons are ignoring. American voters are not stupid. Voters are watching everything. They're watching who gets attacked. They're watching who gets defended. They're watching who plays political games and still get the benefit of the doubt. American politics is getting uglier with every passing year, and it's because of the hypocrisy and moral bankruptcy of political leaders like Trump. These idiots in powerful places have pushed younger generations to a point where they no longer trust the political process. They know that political leaders are nothing more than egotistical and self-centered politicians. They seem completely disconnected from what Americans expect from their politicians.
He tried to defend withholding his daughter's blue bunny.
Oh my, I can't even listen to that. I have a 3-year-old daughter.
Process. He felt like they didn't go through the right process to have the blue bunny returned to his 2-year-old.
Psychotic.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that they've been litigating in the press all week. I mean, one of the reasons the ethics thing, though, doesn't really work for Republicans this time around, they have until August 10th to figure this thing out. Otherwise, he's it. And so, no, the ethics process isn't going to work itself out by then. And in the meantime, this guy is demonstrating day by day that he is just going to be a source of negative headline after negative headline from now until November.
Yeah.
That's a self-own.
I think the ethics process is part of that public pressure campaign because, as you're right, this
he
comes from
called
below.
for his own ethics process because he thinks it's not going to do anything.
It's going to save it. But no, I think it's a miscalculation because it shines a spotlight on his own problems. And Republicans are freaking out, duly so. Republican voters aren't really tuned into the race yet, and they might not if what they're tuning into is a car wreck. Your friend's horrible divorce that he won't stop talking about, and you have to litigate it. You got to hear what she did just now. Nobody wants to hear what she did.
To Van's point, I mean, in both this situation and the Graham Plattner situation, we are seeing evidence of principle actually being the right thing to do here from a partisan standpoint as well.
Yes.
Everyone is making these decisions hoping they can save face, save their candidate, save their party's position. In doing that, compromising in ways that ultimately end up hurting the party far, far more. And Republicans are clearly doing that to themselves now.
Right.
So now I want to hear from you. Should Max Miller drop out? Tell me what you think in the comments. I'll see you in the next video.